Okay, welcome back to the Bishy PE podcast. Today we're joined by Strathclyde Sirens and also Scottish Netballer Nicola McCleery. Hello, Nicola.
Hi there, good morning.
Hello. Also joined by Mr McCue and Mr Johnson. How are we doing, gents?
Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Yep. Looking forward to going back next week.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
Can't wait.
Excellent. So I'll kick us off today, Nicola. How's lockdown been for you? What have you been up to?
So lockdown's turned out to be actually very busy.
Right.
Just trying to keep up with training. We've been away from court since the very start of lockdown, so we've not actually been in the netball environment full time. So it's just been trying to keep kind of ticking over, because at any point we're going back in, and when we do go back in, it's going to be quite full on. So we're good enough. We've got strength and conditioning coaches that are really like on the ball, so they've been sending us stuff to do. So we've more or less got a week-to-week plan of training sessions to do, whether that be conditioning, whether that be to get weight. So before we finished for lockdown, we were able to go and access, which we were really lucky enough to get weights to put, like a lot of us have converted our gyms, our garages, into gyms.
Back
so
garden.
Far out there, it's perfect.
Yeah.
So yeah, just been busy doing that. I've went back to road running. I used to run a lot when I was younger, but when you start playing netball, you end up on a court all the time, and you do your conditioning, but you don't probably go out as many just solely runs. But this time just gave us a bit of kind of flexibility that we can kind of pick and choose what we want to do. So decided to start running again. So the 5k challenges were up, so that kept me busy for a while. And then
We know all about the 5k challenges, don't we?
Yeah.
You don't want to do that.
Oh, well, we were doing 5k challenges for a while, and then I've always, this is really random, but I've always wanted to do a half marathon. So I ended up doing a half marathon during the time as well. So just literally just trying to keep myself busy. We've been a bit more structured as we know that we're kind of coming out of it. We've now got a start date, 1st of September. We officially go back, hopefully on court, but with a lot of restrictions. But so now it's more like we've got a lot more technical stuff with the ball outside to do, and I'm just dragging people from my family out to try and pass me the ball. They're hating it, but needs must.
Brilliant.
Superb. You're also a PE teacher with your netball. So how did you find that kind of balancing your training and kind of working from home?
It's pretty tough, especially when into lockdown. Obviously, we're working from home trying to do my training, which actually worked out quite well because I could train in the morning and get some work done. So I had a bit more flexibility. When you're actually in work and we're training, our training schedule's pretty full on. So most Monday, Wednesday, Friday we train in the mornings before work. So we're in the gym at 6:30. So I'll do a weight session from 6:30 to 7:30, and then quick shower and then straight to work. And then as soon as we finish work, we're back at the Emirates for our coach sessions at night. Sometimes it's like a double shift. Most days I'm out probably like 6 in the morning. I'll leave the house and then I'm back about 9. So it's like having to prepare like breakfast, lunch, and dinners all on the go. But you've just got to be super organised and just try to keep up like deadlines and work. Try to meet them way before. Like I always try and speak to my boss even about just try to get deadlines as soon as we can, so that then I can start making my way through it before leaving it to leaving things to last minute. I'm just a bit OCD. I just don't like it at all. So it's just trying to get stuff done. There's obviously things that just happen last minute. You've just got to go on with it. But the more organised you can be and the more kind of plans you've got, then you just kind of work. I've been doing it for such a long time now that you kind of just get into a routine. And I just do think if you're in a routine, it's so much easier just to stick to it. So I think with lockdown, it's kind of through some people's routine and it's been a bit difficult, but it's just trying to actually set yourself some targets, set yourself some goals just to keep you on track. Yeah.
Excellent. I'll move on to your kind of school career now. So how did you find your school career and what was your kind of pathway? Did you leave in 4th year, 5th year, 6th year?
So I was quite a geek at school. It's quite embarrassing, but I was like really into my studies. I loved school, but I loved PE as well. Obviously it was my favourite subject. I stayed till 6th year, so I did the evening PE. I did standard grades, which kind of makes me feel old now as well, but I was with standard grades higher, and then in 6th year I did an advanced higher in PE. So I went through the full thing at school, but in terms of sport in school, I was involved in like every club I could do. When I first got there in 1st year, I was like, I'll do. So I was in the running club, I was in the netball club, I played football. So my older sister, she played football for a long time, so she went to the children's games. So that was her kind of like, she's like, oh, I did really well at football. I'm like, okay, calm down. No, you didn't. she went there, so that's her kind of main thing. So she was playing for Scotland for a wee bit when she was younger, and that's what got me into football. So my main three were like cross country, football, and netball, and then it got to a point that I had to pick, and me and my sister were always competing with each other, so we were always a very competitive family. So she went on to do football for a while, and then she's obviously gave that up now, and then I picked netball. So I started off in the netball team in first year, and it wasn't probably until second year that I really decided that I really wanted to play like competitively and seriously. And I was lucky enough. I went to Calderglen High in South Lanarkshire, and the assistant coach for national was my higher PE teacher, Jill Fullerton, and she's still my assistant coach for national. She's like my coach. So she picked me up in second year and gave me a club. So I started off going to Claremont Club initially, and then after a few years I moved to East Kilbride Netball Club, where I played majority of my time before I joined the Sirens 4 years ago. So that was kind of always at school. I always played in the year above, or when I got to I would play in the senior team. So I was always kind of playing with like older folk. So when I went to club, I was always playing above my age. And then just from playing club, I got picked up for the under 15s district squad. So I played with the South Lanarkshire district, and then I went into what's called a pathways, which kind of leads you in to under 17s national. And I ended up playing under 17s national, under 19s national, under 21s national. I competed at World Youths for under 21, so that was in 2013. So that was in Glasgow at the Emirates. We competed there, and then joined the national team. Just got picked up. I was probably playing for the national team when I was still under 21s. I started playing with the national team, and then I made my debut. I'm going to say it was quite a number of years ago, but I went. So 2014, I was the reserve for the Commonwealth Games, and then 2018, I went to the Commonwealth Games in Australia, and then played in the World Cup last year in 2019. So that was my kind of. It's been a bit of a whirlwind. It's went really quick, but it's kind of scary now because. So we're talking about people who we know that are a bit older in netball, but they've all left, and now we're one of the oldest ones of the team. So we've got so many youngsters coming through that it's just continually just improving and getting better, which is really good for our sport. Yeah, it's just kind of everything's just.
My door's just went 2 seconds.
Brilliant. So did you stay on to sixth year and then go to uni straight from school?
Yeah. So. I finished in 6th year. I had the option to leave in 5th year. I thought about going to uni in 5th year to do PE teaching. Always wanted to be a PE teacher since I was in primary school. I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So I was quite driven that way. And I knew I had to get what grades I wanted to get to try and get to uni. And after 5th year, I was kind of torn whether to just leave and go to uni at that point. But then I was really kind of I was enjoying my netball. I wanted to just do 6th year, have a bit more of a, well, not a relaxing year. Still did. I did 2 hires and advanced hire in 6th year, but just still wanted to enjoy school life but still play netball because my netball was starting to get a bit more intense at that point. And then I left in 6th year and I went straight to ended up going to Stirling Uni. So again I was a bit torn between Edinburgh and Stirling, but just because of the travel, I could travel to Stirling and still get back for training, whereas Edinburgh I'd have to have stayed. So I still stayed at home and just travelled to uni and just tried to work out my days. I was quite flexible about that I could do just a kind of full day and then have days at home to study so I could get my training in. So Stirling Uni were really good with me. Was there for 4 years and then went straight on my probation year. I did my probation year at Trinity High and that's where I still am. So I just got my job after my probation year. So it's kind of worked out. It's been perfect. The school's over 10 minutes from the Emirates, so it means that it's really good for me just being able to train and jump back to training so I can kind of go from school to training quite a lot, which is super handy for me.
Excellent.
Is there any? Sorry, we spoke to Nicola last week, and she was speaking how she went in school of sport, and it seemed very intense. It sounds as if you're just constant to that lot of time.
Yeah. So Kirsty trains in the same gym as us. So Kirsty's at the Emirates. So the Institute of Sport we're supported in. So Emirates have got their public gym upstairs that we can all use, and then they've got the Institute of Sport, which is just for Scottish athletes. But you'll tend to find that a lot of sports, so you get to know loads of different sports people, and you get loads of them. We're all pals now, so it's quite good. We were in the morning, so you tend to find in the mornings, so our 6 a.m. slot, it's women's hockey that are in with women's netball. So we're in together, and then if you pick up sessions kind of later on at night, so if you can't make a session in the morning, you can go in at night. You'll tend to find you've got badminton, male and female are in. Girls football used to be in the morning quite a bit as well. just depends on when competitions are that you'll start to meet folk. But that's when Kirsty was normally in at night when we meet her. You've got athletics, or track and field events, which athletics, all the boxers are in. So it is pretty constant, but it's good as well. I think, see, when you go in different times as well, and you can speak to like different athletes and what they're training. Yeah. Everyone's training schedules are similar but very different in a way. Just depending on what type of season they're in, where they're competing and when they're competing. But it's good. We've even got a board. This was only introduced about 2 years ago, but it's really good in the gym, and it's got like all the lifts that we do, so deadlifts, squats, bench press, etc. And then it depends on what your weight is and your percentage that you lift. We have like a chart, so all the different sports compete against each other about what they're lifting and stuff. So it's quite interesting. It keeps you going. It's just a bit of fun. But
who's up the top of that, Nicola?
Well, I don't know what to say. It just really annoys me sometimes when you've got like, so we've got a guy who does he does hammer throwing, and I'm like, you can like squat for like 360 kilos. I don't care. Like, so we always have good, like, we do have good challenges, but you're always like looking at people's, because when it's just on like how much you lift, it's quite sometimes hard, because you've got people who are like super strong. Cyclists are very, very powerful, so like they're going to be all the way up there. But then we always try and get into like the bit about percentage of your body weight. That's when you're really trying to like kind of fit in. So I think I was on it for a bit for hang clean, so I'm always like trying to push to get top of hang clean. That's one of my kind of favourites. Or we've got a lot of girls in our squad who are pretty good at squats, so they're like up there as well. So you tend to find a lot of the netballers are actually up there, but I think it's because, like, it's all thanks to our S&C coach. He is just like superb. We've had him, Darren's been our coach for like 6 years now. So he knows us all kind of inside out, knows what each of us needs. So we're all on very individualised programmes. We'll do certain things the same, but in the gym it's very individualised, whether you're on a power phase or whether you're on strength or plyos, etc.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Thanks a lot. Mr Johnson?
So just my next question then about extracurricular clubs. Nicola, I think you touched on football, netball when you were at school, but was there any other clubs you were involved in?
There was loads of different clubs at Caldeglen. They had loads and loads of clubs that you can get involved in. So even every year, like, I would do county sports. So even just getting involved in as much as I could, anything that was going on in PE, I tried to get involved in. We did have a running club for a long time, and then the football, we didn't tend to train for the football as much. It was a lot of it. It was a girls' football team, so a lot of it was, we had quite a few games that I would still play. So even till I played in the Scottish Cup, that's like my claim to fame in football, but I was in the Scottish Cup final when we won it. So that was a good point with our football. But it tends to be every week I was doing netball, so we would normally train. Sometimes not the full squad would train at lunchtime, but I would even go down at lunchtime and just ask to use the court. And see, just with national, they would give you a programme, so if I could go down at lunch and get a wee bit done, whether it just be on a wall and stuff on my own, or like some of my pals would come down with me and we'd just do it together. Just try to use the best of our time as what we could. And then even, to be fair, now our school, we're big into table tennis, so I've really been getting into table tennis recently. And even before lockdown, we were constantly playing it. So I've been quite enjoying that. But apart from that, I was really, by the point I was probably in like third and fourth year, it was just netball from there. But like I say, when I was younger, swimming was a big part. My sister was in the swimming club, so I kind of got dragged along, but then actually really enjoyed it, and it's like a really good way to keep fit. So I tended to kind of do swimming when I was younger, and then even when I was competing at under 17 level, my dad, he used to go to loads of boxing classes, so I would just go along for fitness and just do boxing on the pads, it's just something different. I like to just keep like once if you just stick in the same routine, you get a bit bored of what you're doing, and then you actually don't see any improvements. Whereas just doing something different, like boxing, my fitness went through the roof when I was doing that, and you probably didn't even realise, but when I went back on court, it was the benefits I had were huge.
Do you see that kind of, and you're obviously your PE teacher now as well, but do you see that same sort of passion from the younger kids, like you're saying now you're attending this club and that club and that club? Do you see that in your own kind of practice?
We have like a lot of clubs, so we do a lot on offer in our school. Our netball clubs are obviously at the netball club, which is massive, but there is a lot on offer, and you will find that the kids that are really driven and the ones that come down all the time, they want to do everything. And I always encourage them, like, just get involved. Whether you might not be the best at that sport, but that's not what we're looking for. I've had loads and loads and loads of kids come to the netball club. I think we're sitting at like 65 just now of kids that come to our netball club, which netball just wasn't a thing. They had it years ago, but just more recently we've really tried to get in with it. there's 65 young girls who never have played net. Some of them have never played netball before. Some are in a club. We've maybe got about like a handful, maybe 10 of them that are actually competing in a club netball environment. The rest, they just come and just make pals and socialise. It's just a place for them to come and enjoy themselves. And I never put any pressure. Like, last year was the first time we entered the Scottish Cup, and 3 of the teams got to the quarterfinals, and that was just purely from just enjoying themselves and playing with their pals and coming along, getting fit. But they just more come and like they come down, they try their best, and that's what I'm a big kind of pusher. So our football teams are quite strict to the boys, and they're like, if they lose, they're really hard on it. And don't get me wrong, nobody wants to lose, and I always say that to my kids. I'm like, nobody wants to lose, but see if they go out and they try their best. I was like, I am never ever going to moan at you, or you have done your best. And a lot of them do. They're just they're the great home. They're the best kids ever, but they are really, really good. They come down, and I can ask any more of them. I mean, what way to club, like go away, and even just their manners. See, when you go to schools, I think that tells a lot of like the kids that you have when you go and compete against other schools and kind of how they behave. But they're fab, and we were lucky enough to get Sirens for Success. I don't know if you've heard of that, but there's a programme, Sirens for Success. So it's more for kids that are disengaged with sports. So it didn't really impact on my netball club, because they're all, to be fair, the kids that are in the netball club, they're pretty good in their normal classes as well. But it was a few of the different Sirens girls that come into the school. It's a 6-week programme, and they look at not just, it's kind of getting disengaged kids engaged in sport, and it's just in female sport that we used. And they were in for 6 weeks and took them through different netball practices, but the first hour was more like workshops on like kind of like health and different bits about smoking and obesity, and more just like life things that you could teach them rather than actual netball. And then after that, they got to like play a bit of netball. So we put 33 kids, girls went through it, and then at the end of the 6 weeks they compete. They go to the Eminence and they play against all the other schools that have done it. So it's all kids that have just never played netball before, never been kind of interested in sport, totally came along, just bought into it. And when I went to the Eminence with my kids, there was all these different schools, and see just watching all the girls take part, it was fab. Like they were so good. And even then, a lot of the girls who have went from there has now joined the netball team. So it's great to just see that happen as well.
Brilliant. So my next question is about part-time jobs then, Nicola. So when you were at school, did you have any part-time jobs?
So when I was at school, kind of school into uni, I've always been really interested obviously in netball and wanted to do a lot of coaching. Yep. I tended to go down and help the PE department. That was kind of when I was in school. I would always do that. My first actual job, this is really when I was actually in, was it fifth and sixth year maybe, I worked in a chippy. It was the very first thing I did just to get some money. And that was after that, I've just been sport based, but I did work in a chippy for a bit just to get some money. And then after that, I went into play services, so with South Lanarkshire Council, and all the summer camps we used to do. So I was based normally in John Wright Sports Centre in South Lanarkshire, and we would just hold all the Easter, summer, October week camps, which worked in quite well with school and worked in well when I went to uni. I could still keep it going. I could probably take some more shifts at uni because I could do stuff during the day depending on when I was in class and stuff. But I went in to do that, and then it was all mainstream that I used to work with. And then kind of in the latter stages when I worked for play services, I worked for ASN kids. So that was really, when I look back on it now, it was so helpful in terms of actually teaching, going into it. So I worked for ASM for about 2.5 years, which I absolutely loved. Like, they were just a really, really good experience that I learned loads from. And it was such a good opportunity to go and do something different and a kind of different challenge myself as well. So I did that, and then from there, when I started, it was kind of the end of university, starting my probation year. I was still trying to do some coaching, which started to get a bit difficult trying to work, do your probation, and then play netball. It was a lot. But I ended up just going into coaching. So the pathway, so the step before under-17s national, I was a lead coach for them. So I would basically put kids forward for the under-17s, and then I helped just select for the under-17s. I just became one of the people that would select under-17s national team that would then go and compete. So I started just doing that. I've only recently kind of gave it up, but I now would focus on doing, like, if we've got Sirens, just now we're doing Sirens online camps, or we normally do like Thistles camps for the national squad. So I tend to do that, just depending on our schedule and how much we've got on, depending if it allows it. Or for instance, like our February weekend, if there's only a few days, it's quite difficult. You need your rest obviously after work. So if you've got maybe the summer holidays, then you maybe get like, it's always good to give back your time. I always feel, and it's always good to go and see what younger generations we've got coming through. I'm always quite interested to see like what skills they have, what are they coming in like, what do they look like, and what can we do to then help them. So that's kind of been my coaching and job career from even when I went to school.
Yeah. See, in terms of, you spoke about it in terms of lockdown, but see, just in a normal kind of teaching year, how have you found it balancing teaching full time and then training professionally and playing professionally?
It has had its challenges. It's been difficult. So even 2 years ago when I went to Commonwealth Games, I needed a full month off of work that I had to be away, but that was away from my national class. So it was just in terms of actually having to prepare. So that full month I was trying to, thankfully it was Easter holidays, so I bought kind of 2 weeks of Easter holidays I was away, so it was 2 weeks I needed off work. But our head teacher's really supportive of my netball, which is, I couldn't ask for a much better school to be in. They like really kind of flexible in terms of getting time off. It's obviously don't want to be off that much, but if I need time off to go and compete, our school are very, very good with it. So it's just been organised to leave, like, so I knew that I was going to be off for those 2 weeks, so like having to leave work, and it can be difficult. There's times where you go through phases, you're just knackered and you're just burnt out and you're like, I need a rest, but it's just, you just keep going. And I always find that people, if netball's kind of struggling, people at your work will pick you up, and if your work you're kind of stressed and struggling, then your netball pals will pick you up. So it's just having that balance. You just kind of get through it. And there, like, don't get me wrong, there is going to be struggles, and there is days that you're like, oh my goodness, like, how can I do this? But you just remember why you do it, and you love your sport and you love your job, so you do just like pick yourself up and keep going. But I always think your family are massive in it as well, because they see every day they've got to deal with you. I always feel bad. I'm like, oh my goodness. But it's good because they kind of go through your full journey with you. They live like the high moments, they live the low moments with you, but you do get through it. But it's just being super organised, making sure you're on the ball. Like, everything's got to be like, think about what you've got coming ahead, and right, I need to plan for this, what do I need to do for this? Or even in the morning, like the really basic things about like planning, like what you're eating in the morning, what you're having for lunch and dinner, so then it's not just grabbing something on the go, because you know it's just too tempting when you go to grab something to go.
So see, to be fair, I think we need to get better at that in our department, because we're jumping to Greg's constantly. Mr McCue is terrible for that.
See the chocolate shortbread biscuits, man, they are to die for. They are to die for.
Cheese, his biscuits, his cakes, it's ridiculous.
Well, that's like our work. I'm in our department. I'm like, please keep it away from me, because I'm very sweet toothed, and everyone will listen. I'm like, please just don't bring that in, because I'll eat it. So don't. And every Friday they do, like, they go out and get a deli every Friday, and it's like all these wraps and chips and all that. I'm just sitting with my salads, just sitting there like loving there, like, oh, look, I go. But you just have those moments. There's days, don't get me wrong, there's days that you have it, but it's just about having balance as well.
There's no danger of that as well, because as soon as there's a wee box of chocolates in there, you know Mr McCue's absolutely empty.
You're absolutely crucifying me here, by the way.
Well, you deserve it. You deserve it.
Anyway, is it over to my questions, aye?
Yes, professional career now.
Yeah, so professional career, Nicola. What would you say is the best part about being involved in netball?
For me, it's like the social aspects of just, I love competing. Like, competing's up there, one of my highlights. Every time you get in court or you put, I always think putting the national dress on is just something that feeling you'll just never forget. But more just the social aspects, see the pals you meet. I've still got this, even when I first joined when I was 14, 15, they're still all my best pals now. So the actual friendships that you build from it, that outside the court, like, we'll still meet up, we'll still go on like nights out, we'll do everything, we'll go on holidays together, even just out with netball. So just actually going to training and training with your best pals and knowing that you all work like super hard, because I'm a very big believer in just hard work. Like, you might not be the most talented, but if you work hard, you'll get there. And that's been a huge thing for me. I love the sport for that. That you go in, you could have had a rubbish day, but you'll go in and you'll start laughing because people will tell you random stories that happened in their day, and it just picks you up and gets you through like a training session. Like, you go to training sessions, you're like, oh, here we go again, 3 hours worth. But those are the people that will drive you through it, and they'll pick you up, and they'll have days that they're down, and it's you that then picks them up. So I really do enjoy the sport for that.
Brilliant. I think we can all agree. I think any sport playing in any sport just kind of take your mind away from it. What's your career journey been like? You touched on it earlier, going through kind of different stages, but can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so just obviously played school netball to begin with, and that's what I was picked up by a club. I played in my first club, so I've only actually ever played in 3 netball clubs. So my first club was Claremont, that I was with when I was really young, and then I had to make the kind of move. So we were playing a league that wasn't the best league in Scotland, so if I actually wanted to develop my netball, it was quite a tough decision at the time. When I look back on it, I'm like, that was actually at the time I was petrified to move, because I was like, this is all I know, and am I ready to move? And then that's when I moved to East Kilbride, and they were competing at the kind of top league in Scotland. So I went to East Kilbride, and we won league after league after league. And then it wasn't until 4 years ago that the Sirens got formed. So I got signed 4 years ago. And there's only probably, I think there's about 3 players who are still playing in the Sirens that have started. So we've been there all four seasons, which has been great. And then from them, under 17s, under 19s, under 21s, national. So I played probably about 2 years at every age group, and I was lucky enough to captain the squad for all 3 age groups, which was excellent. So I loved doing that. And then went into the national squad, been there for a number of years now. And then probably the 2 big highlights, Commonwealth Games 2018, going across the Gold Coast in Australia, was one of the best experiences of my life. And then last year, there were very different experiences, playing at a Commonwealth Games with lots of different sports, and then playing at a Netball World Cup where it's just netball. But they both had just amazing memories. And even last year it was down in Liverpool, so it was great because our family, a lot of our families were all there for the full time. So, and it was more like a kind of home support in a way, because you were in, even though you're in you weren't in Scotland, but you're in the UK, so it felt like a kind of home games. Whereas Australia, you were like quite far away from home at that point. But those 2 experiences were fantastic. And then went back to Sirens, so just been playing with Sirens again. And we kind of go between, so obviously our Sirens seasons, January or kind of February time through to June, and then we'll normally have a bit of a break, and then we go into international season. So just now is when we should roughly be in an international season, but due to circumstances not going ahead right now, and then we go back into a pre-season for Sirens to then go round. But more or less we follow 4-year cycles from now, so everything's just in track now for the next Commonwealth Games in Birmingham, and then the next World Cup 2023, which is in South Africa. So that's
so have you had a date when you can get back playing fully?
So our date just now, our initial date is the 1st of September, but just due to kind of recent announcements that gyms aren't opening until the 14th of September, so depending on elite sport and how that works, whether we can get in a bit sooner. But even when we go back, it's really strict what we're under at the start. And even though we've been training out with, we need to be very careful when we come back, so we can't pass a ball. Indoor sports is kind of different as well, in terms of what we're allowed, but we can't pass the ball. We're not allowed any contact at this point. So we'll be in what's called training groups for 6 weeks. So in the 6 weeks, we'll be all being at different times. So I think in the gym, there's only 5 maximum allowed in the gym at any one time, and that's from any sport. So that's going to cause some difficulties in terms of timings that we can go in. And then as an actual group, we'll be in in terms, I don't know if you know this in netball, but the different thirds in the netball court, I'm sure you're aware of this. The different thirds, we'll be probably in a group per third. So there'll be probably about 6 of us, and we won't be allowed. So you'll literally train in that third for the full time, and you'll come off as a group and you'll go on as a group. So it'll be very, very structured for the first 6 weeks. There's a lot kind of in standby just now in terms of, will we compete this year? I'm not sure if we will. It just depends on the current situation and whether or not that changes. Hopefully, it would be nice to get some competition, but only if it's safe to do so. So the plan is our pre-season should normally start about August, so we will be a wee bit behind, but see, because we've been training the rest we've had as well, so it should be fine. Our pre-season really does kick off to start competing normally against, we normally have pre-season matches December time, and then into January, and then the season starts so the new season's February the 6th, I'm sure is the date that I'll officially have a date of actually competing.
Are you competing against other teams from the UK, Nicola? Yeah.
So with Sirens, it's a UK league. So there's 10 teams it's called the Viltality Netball Superleague. So on Sky.
I knew that.
Yes, you knew that. So those games are on Sky Sports. So from February, you catch them on Sky Sports, normally on a Monday or a Friday and a Saturday, just depending on when the games are on. But that's it's a Vitality Netball Superleague. There's 8 English teams, 1 Scottish team, which is the Strathclyde Sirens, and then 1 Welsh team, which is the Celtic Dragons. So you'll normally play, you'll play 1 game home, 1 game away, so 20 games in a season. We're obviously based at the Eminence, so our home games are there, and then we'll just travel for the rest, sometimes by bus, sometimes obviously by flight, just depending on where we're travelling to.
Brilliant. Yeah. You touched on some of your highlights there in relation to the Commonwealth Games. Why was that a particular highlight, and can you tell us a wee bit more about that experience? Because I know obviously we were able to experience kind of Gold Coast as itself.
It was so 2018 was a big highlight. So basically going back, I know we probably going to touch on this, but in 2014 I was a really young athlete at the time, but probably one of these young athletes who was just dead keen. I just wanted to be in the squad and I just wanted to compete all the time. But realistically looking back, it was probably the right decision, but I didn't make the squad in 2014, so I was the reserve for the Commonwealth Games in Glasgow. So I was put on what's called the Achieve programme, which was a really, really beneficial programme that I was put on. So basically every sport nominated two athletes in their sport to be on the Achieve programme, and we all met up and we stayed in Glasgow for the 2 weeks, and we got to go around all the venues and watch all the different sports. So I'd get to go to the netball, but I got to go and watch hockey, I got to go to the boxing, and just go around, just to kind of experience the games, even although I wasn't actually competing at it. So that was it was a bit of a down point for me, because when I got the phone call to say that I wasn't selected but I was a reserve for the game, I was like absolutely gutted. So I just knew in my head, I was like, right, the next 4 years I'm just going to focus, like I know what my aim is, I know where I want to go. So then getting the call for Commonwealth Games in 2018, and then I was a starting 7 player for the full games, so like started every game, played every game, was that like just the best experience ever for me. So we got there, we were away for 4 weeks, which it was quite a long time. So when we went across there, we went into a prep camp for 2 weeks. So the competition was 2 weeks long, but we actually went to a prep camp first. So we went there, and that was like, even there in our prep camp, like it was stunning. We trained, but it was more just to acclimatise. So there was a lot obviously hotter over there when we were there. It was roasting hot. So even we went to training, it was like a sweat box. We had fans on everywhere, just trying to get us, like everything was just horrendous. And then we had like a gym that we had to go and train in, which was like an outdoor gym, and God knows what heat, it was roasting. So even doing that, it was just trying to get our bodies used to it. And then we went up to the Gold Coast, and even just getting into the village, like it was just insane. So you went in and you got your pass, and that was just only like people who were competing, or coaches and volunteers and stuff. That was the only people that were allowed in the village. So it was all security. When you went in, you got your bag checked. Every time you left the village, you had to go through security, and every time you came back in, just at the airport, you had to go through security. And then actually in there, one of the best things about it was 24-hour dining. So you could literally get food whenever you wanted, and you could get whatever you wanted as well. So we would go, to be fair, we only had like 4 days to really enjoy it at the end when we'd finished competing, but because even that you could see it, like every sport was different. So like some sports would be finished, so you would see them in there and like they'd be enjoying themselves having pizza after they knew their games were finished. People had like gold medals, and we were like, great, I'll just have that now. And for us, we were still competing. Or even before it, we were living right next to the boxers, and they were still trying to cut weight. So they were like mental. They were out running around the street with like sweatsuits on, and then trying to like avoid, they were like 24-hour dining, they could not go near. They were like, we need to be really strict about, obviously their diet was completely different to ours, but there was like a barbecue stand that you could just go down if you wanted barbecue food. But literally everything was on offer, because it was all different countries, like every nation was there. And then just walking past folk that, like, we were sitting at lunch one day, and Adam Jamili, the English, like obviously sprinter, just came and sat down next to us, and I was like, guys, do you know who that is? Like, you're still a bit like shocked, because you still see them, even though it's out with your sport. Or even just seeing, like, obviously with netball, like our rankings, we were 8th in the world, but looking at, like, you've got idols who are like number 1 and number 2 in the world, like your New Zealand players and your Aussies who are just like walking past you, and you're like, oh my goodness, there they are. Like, it's just kind of a surreal moment to see. But just staying in the village, it was great. Like, every country had their own space. So Team Scotland had their own kind of like area that we all stayed, so everyone just got dead like friendly. You were chatting to everybody, and just the full experience was just brilliant. Like, absolutely loved it. And then completely different when you went to World Cup. It was just netball based, so it was just netball. Like, I think at Commonwealth Games it was different because you were talking to loads of folk and you're hearing like, where are you competing, and you could go and watch them. So it was good to just go out and support other folk from Team Scotland that you just got dead like friendly with. Whereas at World Cup it was just a big netball focus, and we didn't really go down early because we could just compete here. We maybe only went down a few days before our competition actually started, because it was lucky enough that we're just in Liverpool, so we just could drive 3 hours down the road, and that was us.
Brilliant. Okay, so my last question is, we speak a lot to your senior kids about the different types of training. You've touched on your training regime, but how often do you get to train in a kind of normal week?
Yeah, so our normal week, we train 6 days a week, so Monday to Saturday we're in. A Sunday's always a rest day, so we always moan at our S&C coach, like, don't give us anything for a Sunday because we're not doing it. So Sunday's always a rest day. So the way our week works, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, we're in the gym in the morning, so that's the one at Eminence, which is strength and conditioning, so just all weights, any like plyo, strength work is all done in the morning. And then a Tuesday and a Thursday are our training nights at the Eminence. So it's quite good that we've got the Eminence facility because we can literally get everything done in there. So your physio room's there, your doctor room's there, any nutritionist, performance lifestyle, you've literally got everything in the Eminence building that you can go in for. So Tuesday, Thursday, we're on court, normally 6 till 9. You arrive at 6, but you don't probably start training. We go in, we've got to do like our foam rolling or stretching and stuff before we actually start the warm-up. We'll have a time that's like scheduled to start the warm-up, and then obviously cool down. So you're probably on the court for about 2 hours. And then give or take either side. So that's a Tuesday and a Thursday. And then on a Saturday morning, we normally train as well, 9 till 12 is our Saturday. So 3 court sessions, 3 weight sessions, and then normally on like a Monday night or a Wednesday night, you'd have a conditioning session to do, which you can do on your own. Or a lot of us sometimes just meet at the Emirates and go, they've got the track, so it's quite good that we can go and do our conditioning there. Or sometimes if he's been nice, he lets us go on a treadmill. A lot of us quite like running a treadmill, but obviously it's not got the best benefits sometimes for our knees and our shins that we've always got issues with. So he prefers us just running. So it depends on our week. Sometimes we're on feet, which means obviously we're running, or if we're off feet, so if we're on like the bike or the cross trainer or the walk bike or anything kind of stuff like that. So it does just vary. But we are pretty structured between Monday to Saturday. It's like, this is what we're doing and everyone sticks to it. And then Sunday you're given Sunday's normally just our day of chill. Like, I love a Sunday. You just get kind of time just to catch up with family and just have a bit of like relaxation before you go back to work on the Monday.
I need the balance.
Absolutely.
Questions out, boys? Back to you.
Nicolas, you're talking there about the Eminence and the facilities that you have, and they're obviously world class. Do you think that's had a big impact on maybe your development or the team's development?
Absolutely. As soon as we used to be at Scotstoun before the Eminence was built, so we were over at Scotstoun for a long time doing our training, and then we got moved to the Eminence when that opened, and that's kind of became our base. So even the Sirens in the Netball Scotland office are upstairs, so they're on the 5th floor, and the Eminence as well. So even if you need to talk to like a coach and stuff, it's so accessible for everything. You literally could go in and get whatever you need. So it's good for us that I can just pop over for physio if I needed that, or you can go in and get like, you can book in for a massage if you need that. Everything's just on hand. So I think for me it's been massive in terms of actually having just that training that you can just go, you can get all the facilities you want, anyone you need to speak to is there. Like going for a S&C coach, that's been massive. Our gym's perfect for us just to go in and do it. And we've even got we can use obviously the track, and then we've even got all our like, treadmill stuff, our assault bikes, our walk bikes that we can go out and use out even the circuits and stuff. So just how much they've got on offer that we can use and how much we're supported by Sports Scotland is fantastic. Like, even me individually, but us as a team to just bring us together, because everyone is kept pretty fit, pretty on top of everything, and everyone knows that they can go there for support, or even if we're going over for like analysis. So we do a lot of analysis. It's kind of like pre and post matches, but we'll do all that, and we've got offices upstairs that we can all use. So even it's good for our girls at uni, so if they want to go in and study, there's study rooms that they can use. They can just go in there and study, so it's great. Like, it kind of suits everybody, and there's anything you need you can just go in and ask. And it's quite good because you get to know even the folk that like work in the Emirates, so they all know us, everybody in the cafe knows us. Sometimes you get freebies as well, which is always a bonus. But even then, you just get to know everyone, and a lot of people, the staff, will do like on our match days. They'll be the ones who will be organising a lot of things. So it's just nice, just familiar faces and folk you know, and you tend to walk in and you're saying hi to everybody left, right, and centre. But it is a really good way for us, for both individually and as a team.
Yeah, that sounds brilliant. The facilities at Scotstoun are really good, but Eminence obviously are just that next level.
Absolutely. We used to be, it was Palace of Arts we used, so just next to as well, Bella Houston. We used Palace of Arts a lot. Obviously it's not, I don't even know if the gym is actually still in Palace of Arts, but we were there for a long time as well. So we've kind of went kind of all over, but Eminence has become our base for the last, we've been there at least 6 years now, and it's been fantastic. But we can still train, so it's Institute of Sport have got quite a few all over, so like our Edinburgh based girls will train in Edinburgh, and then when I was at uni, if I wanted, Stirling's got one as well, which was super handy for me if I had to catch up. To be fair, I like to be in Glasgow because I know you know your coach and you know what you're kind of doing, you know where the gym is. But if I was through in Stirling and I really needed to do a session, then I had coaches through there who worked for Institute that would just pick me up on a session and just be like, right, this is what we're doing. So it's good that you've got the flexibility to use a lot of the different gyms as well.
Yeah, definitely. Brilliant. Do you keep a training diary, Nicola?
Yeah, so we're quite strict on our diaries. Our diaries get sent to the full squad every week. So if you don't do your diary, everybody knows about it and you get called out big time in the group chat. But yeah, so basically our diary, we put a training, so it's an app called Smarterbase. So on Smarterbase, you've got to input every day your wellbeing diary and then your actual training diary. So there's two different kind of sections on it. So your wellbeing diary will just ask you, basically you have got to rank out of 10. So they'll give you maybe 5 different questions. So how well did you sleep? Currently, how sore are you? So you rate out of 10 how sore you are. It asks you how ready are you to train today? And then it will ask you, what's the other question it asks you? Your sleep, how many hours of sleep. So they track how many hours of sleep you have every night. So you input your wellbeing, and then if you're, say you're sick, so if you said, like, it says the very first question is, are you able to train today? So if you hit yes, it will take you into all the different questions. If you hit no, then it will say why. So you'll hit like illness or stress or whatever, and there's a comments box that you can then put, like, phone the doctor, I'm going to see the institute doctor, or you can say that you're stressed or what's happening with uni, and then basically as soon as you input that, you'll get, so say you put in that you're stressed, you would get a phone call from like Performance Lifestyle who would then try and help you, and they'll try and discuss with you like, what's happening, how can we help, or you get uni deadlines, work deadlines and stuff. And then the training diary section will just ask you, like, have you trained today? Majority of the time you're saying yes. And then when you hit yes, it will basically ask you so how long you train for and what type of session. So it'll give you just a kind of block down, and it'll be like netball training. And then when you hit netball training, it would be like ball work, speed, footwork. So you've got to like kind of categorise it. Or if you hit conditioning, then it'll ask you, were you off feet? So on a bike, were you on feet? Which is more just now if we're on feet, then it's like doing like a Lee Mills kind of like workout, or any like body weight workout, but you're on your feet. Or is it running? So is it just like straight running, like road running or something? So you would hit that. So you've got different categories. Or if you do recovery, you would put recovery in. And then basically you rank how intense it was. So at the end of the week, so on a Sunday, you should have all 7 days worth done. And then that will get sent. So it goes to our like Performance Lifestyle looks at it. And then we've got sports psychologists, sports therapists that all come in and they all sit down and they look at it. Sports science is quite a big one for us, that they'll then track your full week, and they'll look at like how many hours you train for, what intensity we train at, and they'll basically be able to predict what you should be doing the next week from your training load on that 1 week. So it's quite intense. It is a lot to do, and a lot of us were, even at the start, it was quite hard to remember to do. So you'll find a lot of the girls have actually got alarms set every day to actually do their diary. But it's just getting a routine with it. Once you do it, I've already done mine this morning. So I got this morning, just went a run, came back, put in my diary, and then that's it, done for the day. So you know it's done and out of the way. But it's just actually keeping on top of it. But it means then you can always look back to see what you've done, and they can literally pull up week to week exactly how much you've done, and it will show you on your like the full kind of database what you've done.
Yeah. I think it's good for the senior kids who are doing national and higher here, stuff like that, because I think a lot of the time they just think it's it's something that actually doesn't get used by professional athletes, and obviously they do, and it works.
I think they sometimes just have that kind of conception that you're just training, you're just good at what you do, but there's so much more to it than actually the steps to get on court to actually play netball. There's so many steps before you even on the court, and even going back from lockdown into this, like if our diaries depend on where we're at, will depend on if we're allowed back on court. So they've already spoke to us about like we have to send in physio measures. So if our bodies aren't robust enough to actually take on the demands on court, then they'll just be like, you're not coming to training until you get your measures up. So there's a lot more to it than just playing netball, which I think sometimes people think you just play netball. I'm like, trust me, we don't just play netball.
Yeah. Definitely. That kind of takes us on to our next question, Nicolas. So you've obviously been part of a kind of elite club and obviously national level for quite a few years now. Kind of from your own experience, what makes these teams so successful?
Just in terms of being successful, it's just actually coming together. I always think working together as a squad, and actually you always sit down at the start of the season and we look at values. So we talk about what values do we have as a squad, and every year they're different. They won't, because you have different people in the squad. So you're allowed 2 imports in Sirens, so every year we can have 2 imports in our team. So you'll find that the squad's always changing. You'll get sometimes the same players, but you'll always have some differences. So people have different values and people bring something different that they like in a squad. But for us, just our hard work ethic has always been something, and our commitment to our training. So if you don't buy into it, then don't sign up to be in the squad. It's kind of like our whole kind of philosophy that if you're not going to come up to every training session, you're not going to put like 101% in. And we always talk about getting like we 1%, so that's like our nutrition or like our recovery. And if you don't want to buy into it, like what our team values, then don't be in the team. And I think it's good that way, because then you know that the people that have signed up are the people that want to be there and the people that are committed. And you'll see that at training when you come in. We have quite a lot of people who come and just observe our training sessions just to see, like we had Scotland Rugby came in last year, and they came in with cameras and stuff because they wanted the video to see like what it's actually like. So they were doing a big study, and they came into the national squad and they were like, I cannot believe like the intensity that you guys work at. Like it's just crazy, and like how much you communicate, because they had the kind of cameras on their chest, so they were walking about and they were like looking at different people, and they could obviously hear everything that we were doing, and what we were saying to each other. Like we were so honest. But like if somebody like does something at training, like you're going to get feedback, but whether you like it or not, it's always going to be constructive feedback. But I always find with the squads, like you've got to kind of be able just to take it. Like people are going to say things in the moment to you when you're in training, but it's to make us better as a squad. It's not a personal thing. It's more, how are we going to get better as a squad? And I think just our honesty with everybody and how much we do communicate. But I think that comes from our bond off the court, then helps when we go on the court, that we can have those kind of, you'll have tricky conversations that you're going to have, but that's fine. I think that's what actually gets us through, and how hard we all work. Like I know that right now in lockdown, like every other athlete is doing the same as what I'm doing. They'll all be working hard and they'll all be pushing themselves. So then when we get back on court, we're not starting 10 steps behind where we actually want to be at, that we can actually kind of hit the ground running and like start going. Just, I think that's the best thing to have.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely highlights this kind of social side of things that is really important. So we've got quite a kind of prominent netball club at the school. We've got quite a few netballers, particularly first and second year. What advice would you give to them? And if you could kind of pick out 3 kind of qualities or skills, what would those be?
For me, for them in first and second year, is enjoy your netball. Just enjoy it when you can. Like have fun. Don't come in and be really serious. Like we need to win this and we need to win that. It's not about that when you're that age. It's just about learning. So come in, soak up any drills that your coach is giving you. So come in and just with the attitude that you just want to learn. And I always find that even with our kids in first and second year, I just give them really basic skills to work on. Like even with their ball handling skills is huge. So just getting a ball in your hand and passing to begin with. There's no point in looking at tactics and looking at different structures. Put that out the window. Just really go back to the basics. We still do fundamental things at our training. Every training session, we'll still do ball work. So I always say to my kids, you need to get the fundamental skills right before you actually move on. But just enjoy your school netball, because nothing will ever compare to your school netball. I loved it, and I just had the best time with all my pals, and we came down and we just had the best time away competing. Enjoy the bus journeys when you go to compete. If you're travelling 4 hours, just have fun. but just the experience of it, just being around your friends, is the best. In terms of actually, like, there's qualities that are going to work on. Your communication skills will be key, and I always find that the skills and qualities you'll develop, even just coming to the club, will help, and will transfer in so many different ways. So even just your social skills in actual life, and when you get to like 4th and 5th and 6th year, you'll realise that, oh, I'm actually a lot more mature, I can have these kind of conversations, and that all comes from just skills that you've learned from there, or even like how determined and how committed you are. Take that from even in netball and then translate it into your studies. So when you are studying for the exams, then, right, I'm motivated to do this because I can transfer what I've learned there. And I always find even the skills that I learned in school, I transferred into my work, and I still use them even in netball today, and I still use them every day, like just your people skills, but just being able to actually kind of focus and be determined and be committed, and then actually kind of transferring them across, I think, is a great way to look at it.
Yeah, excellent.
Great message.
Good advice.
Just before I finish up, right? I obviously mentioned about how I was a starting bowler in the starting football match. But here's a question for you. I've managed to break the barrier of male-dominated sports and girls playing that, and female-dominated sports and boys breaking that. Why hasn't there been boys in netball?
Well, there is boys netball. Yes. There is a league in Edinburgh that you can play in if you want to join.
Even I know that, Mr McCue.
Where do they sign up?
Yes, so what you can do is there is clubs in Edinburgh, because we actually play, so a lot of the time we play against men's squads, so we'll play against them.
Really?
And it's a completely different experience. They play very kind of like very unorthodox netball that you've not, but it's a really, we always say it was a good experience for us to go and play against them, because you get something completely different. So even before, like in our Sirens pre-season, we went down to a tournament down in England, and they've got a squad down there, an England squad, and they were part of the competition. So all the Super League female teams were in it, and there was a male team in it, and the male team came second. They were so good. They were brilliant, but they played really good netball. They're excellent. So you can get involved with netball. Don't worry, you can join the teams in Edinburgh.
Excellent. Mr McCue transfer to Viltality to Edinburgh Netball Club. I can see it. Back in the Daily Record tomorrow, I can see it.
As long as they're paying as much as the Viltality, they'll be all right.
Oh, what's that? Yes.
Anyway, right, finish up. We're looking for 5 of your best dinner guests. Who would you be and why?
Well, this was not a topic of discussion at our dinner table last night, because I was like, right, who would you all pick? So there was a lot of debate about this question and about who we were going to pick. So for me, I would have to have a netballer there, because obviously with the sport. So Laura Langman is probably my number one netball hero. So she's the captain of the New Zealand squad. So I definitely have her, just to find out. I really want to know, like, what's your training schedule? What do you do? And comparing it to what we do, to see what the Kiwis do. So I find that really interesting. Yeah. My second one I picked was my actual sporting hero out with netball is Rafa Nadal.
All right.
So I've always loved tennis, like love Wimbledon, love US Open, everything about tennis I love. And he's always been someone that I wanted to meet and just find out, like, just everything he's won, and like he's came back from injury, and then he's played like such a high level for so long. Like, he is literally one of the best tennis players ever. So I just love him at the dinner table. I think he would be interesting. My third one, which I was really into during lockdown, I would love Pep Guardiola at my table.
Right, okay.
We've been watching a lot of like Man City stuff, but even then I would just be interested from like a coaching side. And obviously because we really enjoy football. Football's quite big in my household. Like my dad's a big football fan, so is my sister. My mum hates it. She's like, stop watching the football. But we're all quite football fans. So I think for him, like watching loads of the documentaries, I'm like, oh my goodness, I need to meet this guy. Like, this is so interesting, and like how he kind of delivers, I always find is pretty interesting. My fourth person is a bit different, but I would love Michelle Obama.
Yeah.
I read her book during lockdown, which was really, really interesting. Like, it was when obviously Barack Obama was in America, it's so interesting just reading her book to see where she's came from. So if you ever get a chance, or for anyone who wants to watch it, to read the book, it is really interesting. It tells you from even like her school, and then like how many struggles she went through, and then how she met, and then what happened when she was like first lady and stuff. So that would be an interesting one, I think, just hearing from her.
Excellent.
And then my last one is totally random. You're going to think, why on earth would you want this person at your table, right? But I don't know if any is like Jack Whitehall, or if you've watched Jack Whitehall Travels with his father. And Michael Whitehall, his dad, is the funniest guy I have ever seen in my life. So I would have him because the dad is just so funny, and I'd want him at my table to give me some humour.
It's not even Jack Whitehall, it's his dad.
No. Have you ever seen Jack Whitehall Travels with his father? And see if you've not. It's the funniest thing you'll watch. I mean, it's right up my street for humour, so if you watch it and you think this is rubbish, just blame me. But it's very good, so I would have him as well. That was another one.
I actually read, Nicola, that you were a big Shania Twain fan.
Huge Shania Twain fan. That, not gonna lie.
We need to get a tune here. We need a tune.
What a legend, though. She is literally, like, you cannot get any better. I put Shania Twain on in the changing room, that everyone's like, get that off. But we've got some to be fair, we've got some really different vibes going on in our changing room. Like, some of them like rap, some like just pure cheesy music, like Little Mix, some of them like. So it's very, very different. Some of our playlists is a bit crazy.
That's better than Mr McCue's Fitness Suite, Xander Nation tunes.
It does the job.
It does do the job. That's a good one, to be fair. We are a big mix. I'm all for it.
Brilliant.
Excellent. Thank you very much for joining us today, Nicola. We really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm sure that you'll be watching Mr McCue's netball journey with a lot of interest over the next few months.
Can't wait to read the papers tomorrow to see that he's joined the team. That's good.
And thanks very much for joining us. Anybody that's watching this, make sure you get across to Twitter and follow us at Bishy PE, and also go onto YouTube and Spotify for all our podcasts that we've done so far. Thanks again, Nicola.
Cheers, thanks guys.
Cheers.
See you later.
Bye.
Cheers.